This is not something that is the first time that Jamie Dimon is talking about this. He on his soapbox often talks about some of the fundamental challenges of society. He's talked about the income inequality, opportunity inequality, our failing school systems. And he has said in the past multiple times, after this has come up at places like Davos in Switzerland, he's talked about how that if this money is going toward some of the fundamental problems that we have in our society, he's okay with raising taxes on the wealthy. He would just prefer that they don't raise taxes on actually what people own, that they raise it on income.
So Hugh, speaking of JP Morgan, you had some reporting that traders at the bank, well, they may be complaining about a lack of communication regarding COVID-19 cases in the office. What are you hearing about that?
Right. So, last week there were press reports that people on the fifth floor, that there was one person on the fifth floor who came down with COVID. And as it turns out, most of the building at JP Morgan, which is in Midtown, actually learned about that from the press reports and not from an internal communication, because they only told people who were on the fifth floor or who had actual meetings with the person who was later found out to be sick. And so I think what this talks about is, what is the fundamental burden of disclosure that JP Morgan has? On the one hand, JP Morgan says, look, we're telling the people who are directly impacted, that is sufficient. And on the other hand, the people that I've talked to and the people who took part in a town hall meeting on Thursday with the global head of trading basically feel as though that if there's a COVID case anywhere in the building, that they want to know about it. Because, they obviously take common areas, they take elevators with everybody, and there is some non-zero percentage possibility of exposure to somebody with COVID in the building.
And finally, Hugh, Wells Fargo CEO Charles Scharf apologizing after making some really controversial comments about diversity hiring, specifically saying there is a, quote, limited pool of black talent to recruit from. What's been the fallout from this so far?
Yeah, so it was immediate, Frank. He spoke today and said that actually his comments, he apologized for them. He said that they were, in fact, an example of unconscious bias, which is an issue, in all places throughout society, but especially in banks. And I think, specifically with banks, there's this chicken or the egg problem. Is it that the talent pool for black candidates, particularly as you go higher and higher in the business, are they scarce? Or is it that banks aren't really looking hard enough and aren't developing their talent so that there are candidates for later on in those higher places? And I think, this is something that's uncomfortable, but that it has to be talked about. And I think it's actually really good that Charlie Scharf talked about this because of the feedback and the results that happened.
It doesn't seem like he thought it was very good. I know a lot of people in a number of industries have said to me, well, why doesn't he try the ocean? Do you think that this will lead Wells Fargo and maybe banking in general to kind of create a pipeline for diverse talent?
If there's no other way to do it. And certainly places like JP Morgan, have shown that this is possible. At JP Morgan, Cassandra Duckett is actually, she's a black female head of the consumer bank at JP Morgan. And they've found that if you develop people over years and years, that this is something that can eventually be done. And so, I think it's a process, and I think, you have to start now because obviously, we're way behind on this in finance.
Hugh Sun, great stuff as always. By the way, great plan. I saw you more of as a bookcase guy. I'm surprised.